Hi, Joanne.
So good to see you.
You. Oh my gosh. And Shandon, you made it.
Yes, still have power.
Looks like it's a bit chilly there, Shandon.
Yes, I think it's below 0 with the wind chill.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, our houses are just not designed for this. So my office has been closed and I forgot to turn the heater on.
Oh no.
It's very chilly.
Yeah, yeah. My office is kind of separate from the house and it gets very cold. I have my heater right under my desk, so if I get cold, I can
Yeah.
just turn it on.
And my little heating pad on, my ridiculous sloth blanket on because it's freaking warm.
Oh, that's right. You have to show everyone your sloth blanket. Come on.
My slothy blanket. Where's it? I got 2 hoods right now.
Okay.
And it has little
Little
I can't even see right now.
wait,
Has
little.
little slothy mittens.
There you go. Oh my God, I love the sloth.
I know, it's
I
so
have some
awesome.
beer under there.
Hi, Jane.
Hey, everyone.
I'm gonna give everybody a minute to hop on. So many people were commenting that they couldn't get on because of winter storms, like knocking out their power and their internet.
I'm crossing my fingers. We've had 2 down trees, like blocking roads, so hoping the power will stay on. Because it's just too cold for it to not be on.
It's interesting because here in Montana, hello everybody, it's minus 40. And so it was
I can't complain.
yeah,
I can't even imagine.
and it's right now it's a balmy minus 22.
Oh, geez.
And so I went down to the horses with my dogs this morning, and they are frosty and fine, and they're doing really well, and the water is all working, but it's just like, holy crap, it's cold. I mean, it's like so, and I tend to ride all winter, and all my friends are like, "You're not riding now, are you?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm just retreating to the house with dignity." And no, no, no. So.
Nina, hi Nina. Oh my gosh. Oh, my favorite people. Look at
Well,
this.
if you feel like you need some sunshine sent your way, I'm more than happy to share some.
You look like you're in the middle of
Right?
summer for sure.
We're in sort of sunny Queensland, Australia, and yeah, so it's pretty sunny. I've just come from the beach. I was telling Christine, I've just come from the beach this morning. So not to rub it in, but if you feel like you need a bit of sun and blue sky, I can certainly turn the screen around and share that.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I feel the warmth.
Yes. Just send the heat. Send the
Mhm.
heat,
Yes, he's good. That would be good.
right?
We actually had a Zoom call this morning with the Bali group, and one of our Bali group is coming from Australia, and she said it was like 40 degrees Celsius today. She was.
I'll take it.
Where is she located, Christine?
I think she said I think she said she's near Perth, but I could be wrong. I could be very wrong.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Is it hotter there than where you are?
I think they're getting a bit of a heat wave right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not here. Hi, Colleen. Nice to see you again, my friend. And I'm like, oh, I know her. Every time I see Colleen, I go, I know you, even though we hadn't met yet. And now
I was there for that
Yep.
first meeting.
You were there
Yep,
for that
you
one?
were.
I was.
Yeah, you weren't the only one.
I think
There
we were
was
by
like
the
3 or
elevators or something like that. I can't remember,
Yeah.
but I remember the whole thing. You're like, nice to see you. And she was like, I never met you, which was hysterical. Because I do stuff like that all the time.
There was actually like 3 or 4 people that did that week.
Really?
You're just the familiar person.
You got one of those
I
faces.
guess.
Mhm.
I guess.
So I guess we'll get started. It's recording for all you guys, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
hit it. I just gotta make sure because I have forgot to record time and time again, and then, I say I'm gonna have it recorded and then it doesn't. Hi, Bridget. All right, so yeah, I don't know if you all had seen the thing I posted on Facebook that was kind of on my mind. Was about, this idea of having those moments when you get to kind of see something that has been in your mind, that has been part of your operating system, and then all of a sudden you become aware of it and something shifts and you see it completely differently. Like I had talked about with my dog trainer, I'm there and I have to tell you that this is a recurring, um, let's say the recurring notes I get from people that I work with is that, or people who have been trying to teach me, is that I tend to be too hard on myself and I tend to kind of collapse if I don't get it right. And I'm not out. No, I don't think I'm showing anything, by the way. I don't think like I'm showing giving away any of how I actually feel, but I guess my whole body, changes. When I was in acting school back in the 90s, in New York, my teacher one day, she stopped me in the middle of a scene to give me some notes, some direction. And I guess like my expression was so defeated. So she launched a tirade against me, but basically screamed at me that you are so effing hard to teach, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, but the idea was driven home that, yeah, trying really hard and being excited and then easily being collapsed. And that kind of really I kind of really learned that lesson again when I was doing the training, because my trainer's like, yeah, look, you want to hold on the leash, but easy, like you just drank some margaritas, she's like, she's like trying to get me to loosen up. And I guess I'm like, okay, I got it, and when she said, but the thing that changed everything was when she said, oh, I love training because I love finding an opportunity to make a correction and build the communication. And it was like, oh, so it's not about just checking the box and getting it done and being good and having him trained. Even though if you asked me logically, if I knew that already, I would have been like, yeah, I know that. I knew that. But there's knowing and then there's knowing. And that just changed something inside of me. And it made me think about having that outlook on life. I think that when I work with people and in my own life, I think the greatest gift you can give yourself is becoming really, really fascinated with you. Becoming really fascinated with who you are, why you're that way, discovering why, a lot of times we do things automatically and we've never even noticed that we're doing them. And then one day something happens and we notice that we're doing that. And then we go, why do I do that? Where did that even come from? And then we start to realize that maybe we don't even know where it came from, but it's just there and it's not what we would choose to do. So we get to choose something different now that it's in our awareness. Like, how can we change something that we're not aware of?
Mhm.
Does anybody have any experiences where they had like an aha moment of something just became a mirror, or a situation all of a sudden they had like almost like an out of body where they like saw themselves and like, but that's not how I'm thinking I'm showing up, but that's how I'm actually showing up.
I had sort of a reverse of that in a interesting way. I'll just in short, I have been doing some energy work, long story short, and there's sort of it's almost taking Tai Chi. You're working with your body, but you're working with a pattern, and ideally it's done outside. And to the outside viewer, it would sort of look like you're crazy because you're not doing like a Tai Chi movement. You're almost walking in an infinity pattern, and you're making 2 circles, but you're crossing in the middle, and then you're changing direction, and you're almost sort of getting into this hypnotic state of mind. And ideally you do it barefoot. That it's like, you're really, the whole idea also is that you're really sort of making contact with the earth. And I've done it a few times in different places, but the first time I did it, I thought, yeah, no big deal. Like, all right, yeah, let me just do this. And I was out in a field that I often go and where I walk my horse. I wasn't with my horse, and I started to do it, and I didn't think anyone was around. And a woman with 2 dogs came out of her house. The dogs were outside. The dogs started barking, even though they were quite far away from me. She called the dogs in. And then I could have sworn she yelled "wacko" to me, and she went inside the house. Now, I'm not entirely certain she said that, but that made me so self-conscious. And all of a sudden I started to see myself like from the outside, like, oh my God. And I started really doubting what I was doing, and like seeing it from a perspective of someone who had no clue what I was doing. And it really threw me off. And I couldn't get back into the groove, and I just abandoned it for that day. And then several days later, after sort of processing that, I did go to a different spot, and I ended up doing it sort of in a snowstorm, believe it or not. And I didn't care anymore. There were other people walking. There was someone sort of jogging down this trail. I mean, yes, it was a snowstorm. Don't know why he was jogging, but he was. And I was out doing this pattern, and it felt all of a sudden very me. Like I came into knowing that this is the right thing for me to do. I plugged into it. I was able to block other stuff out, and it was really gratifying. And I'm not really sure what changed, like, other than I just said, I can't care what other people think. I know this looks like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, sort of crazy from the outside, but I wanted to experiment with it so badly, although I didn't do it barefoot that time. It was quite interesting that that I did something that I thought was all right, yeah, let's do it. And then all of a sudden I became so self-conscious, I froze and I couldn't do it. I got so locked up with, and what other people are going to think, or what does this lady really think I'm crazy? And am I really crazy? And so it was weird that then I needed to go away and process it. And then I just came back to, nope, I don't care. And I'm just doing it. So I don't know. It's not exactly what you were saying, Christine, but I don't know. It's what came to mind when you were bringing that up.
So do you think that maybe you had a belief that it mattered what people think that aren't really relevant to you, and in that moment you were able to let go of that belief and see it?
Yeah, it was like almost I needed to learn. And of course, we all go through this to a certain amount, like, judgment from the outside and how much that affects what we're
Yeah.
doing and the integrity of what we're doing in that moment. And does it knock us off course or not. And absolutely, it knocked me off course because I started with full intent and intention to do this, and I was psyched to do it. But that interruption really threw me, and I began to doubt like the credibility of it and like just what I was doing. And it was the judgment from the outside, from a complete stranger. But going away and thinking about it over the 2 days that transpired between the first time I did it and the second time I did it, I just like took those reins and I said, no, this is I want to explore this a little bit more. It's sort of like going into a meditative state, and you want to go down deeper. And the only way you're going to do that is by staying with your breath and staying in the moment and being in the now. And regardless of what's going on around you, you stay with that. And that sort of attunement to myself, I came into that realization and was able to do it and I really got something out of it. And so now I did it again today, somewhere else. And I don't even know if there were people around, and it's fun, but it taught me something about my relationship to something that I really believed in and wanted to do for myself, but then I was I felt like I was too vulnerable, and I let the outside world direct me in a particular way that was not good for me. And I'm glad that I sort of got back on course with it. But I guess to your point, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that really relates to your point, but
So Jane, I want to acknowledge that the thing that you're talking about means that you're swimming upstream mentally, not just from your own experiences, but from your genetic programming to belong for safety. You are pushing yourself outside of something that is like biologically programmed into you to not do anything too crazy to get kicked out of the community, the herd, the tribe, right? So it has to be a real intention there, but give yourself credit, because that's not something, I think that's something that we can learn to do in order to grow, but it's something that is definitely something we all share.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
yeah, it does. I'm glad that I came back to not like, whether or not I belong to the tribe, I was able to override that very strong feeling of sticking to the norm versus sticking to what my core said was good for me.
Mhm.
And I came back to the core self. So it was a really
up for
big
your-
realization.
Yeah, you showed up.
What?
You showed up for yourself.
Yeah. It was a true moment of being vulnerable. Like, okay, this is natural for me to do, but oh wait, no, there's something wrong. But then I had to flip back to it. So yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, just wanted to show that.
No, that's awesome. That's really, it's it's like that saying with dance like no one's watching, right? Like putting ourselves out there in that way. Everybody gets a feeling when they hear dance like no one's watching. We all know what that means. We all know the feeling that conjures up. So being able to do that is great. A great stretch personally. Hi,
Especially
Tom.
when you feel like people are watching. So it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. People were actually watching, and you did it anyway. I would also say, yes, go ahead, Cindy.
No, carry on. Finish what you were going to say, and then I wanted to say something, but it may be related, and I'm not sure. But carry on. Finish what you were going to say.
No, I was going to actually say something different. So you go ahead.
I've had this experience again and again, and I just had it just now because I was just texting somebody. We were talking about our horses, and I said, because he had a thoroughbred and I had a thoroughbred, and the Great Picken was my very first horse. Never rode a horse before. She was in the Kentucky Derby, and it was just an amazing journey. And I said, yes, she's now buried in, in a part of the pasture that I call the Field of Dreams. And he said, it sounds like you've got an amazing place. And I'm like, and a couple of people have said that to me independently. I haven't asked about it. And I'm like, and sometimes, especially when it's -40 and just things that have gone on, you get in your head and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. What am I doing? And it's like, this is not the life I thought I'd have, because I'm from New York originally. I never rode a horse till I moved here. And it's like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. And instead of being like, oh, what's going to happen? It's like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's your point or not, but it's just a perspective change. And God keeps reminding me of that all the time, because people just have been telling me that lately. And I'm like, oh, I think there's a message here.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Exactly. Like you changed the way you looked at your life.
It's like, yeah, it's kind of like, wow, this is an amazing blessing. And sometimes, I guess we get in our heads about how it should be, or it's -40 degrees, and it's just like I've been going out to the horses and I'm just having a great time. And it's just, I usually ride every day, so I haven't ridden in for 2 days, but it's like, at least there's no way I can ride, and I'm just watching my horses brave the wilderness. They're just amazing. They're just amazing creatures.
Well, it reminds me of, when I moved into my place, and my dream, oh my gosh, my dream has been to have a place where I could have my horses, like to live with my horses. And
Yeah.
I was up every day at like 5 a.m. Like I was like jumping out of bed, like so excited to be here. I noticed every detail, every bird, every aspect of this. I lived it, breathed it. But over time, that starts to become normalized, right? And then we start to
Yes.
our connection to the very thing that was
Absolutely.
at one time our biggest dream.
Is it because I run a bed and breakfast here? It's a horse friendly B&B, and people can bring their horses. And without doubt, when people come here, they go, this is your view? This is amazing. And I'm like, thank you for the reminder. So yeah, exactly. And it fades away. It's like, dang, we're really blessed.
Well, that's where like gratitude really comes in, because it's that reminder to plug back in to your sense of wonder and acknowledgement of the bounty in your life. I heard a woman, I was listening to this woman coach this other woman, and the woman being coached had a business. She had her own business, and she was in like interior design or something, and she had done like $1 million that year, and they were looking to double that the next year, but it was going to take like a much bigger investment. They were going to have to really like step into a bigger investment, and she was starting to view the whole thing as overwhelming. She was starting to view it as the fear was coming in, that it was going to be heavy, and because a lot of times, if you're an entrepreneur, a lot of times there are times when you have to work super hard, like you're doing a lot more, and then eventually all that work you're doing allows you to coast for a while, and you get to, and it builds, and then it can go again. It's like cycles. So she's been in the middle of this big cycle, and she's wondering about whether or not she should just abandon ship. And she said, but the problem is, and this is so me, the problem is that she said every time she thinks about abandoning her business and just going, it's enough, I'm going to get rid of it. When she sits and thinks about, well, what am I going to do now? Everything comes right back to where she is right now, right? Like it all comes back. Well, then I would do this to be able to do that, to be able to do that, to build it to this, and then I'm back right here. So that tells you that you're, most likely where you're supposed to be. It's just like, how do you change your view of it? How do you change, the idea of what should be happening? Or, I think we all are able to do hard things. I think we're all capable of doing hard things. And I think that when we have hard moments, I think as long as we know, oh, puppy, as long as we know that they're not going to last, and that all the best things in the world are on the other side of commitment and sacrifice and work.
I mean, you're absolutely right. But sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you're not seeing it that way. You're just like, oh crap, and you're just in the middle of it. But you're absolutely right. You're just, and that, I think that's why it's good to have a tribe of people and circle of awesomeness that can sort of give you a perspective on it.
Yeah, having that, well, that's the beauty, right? That's the beauty in having community. That's the beauty in having,
Yes.
coaches and mentors and best friends, right? People that will constantly challenge you and remind you of who you are, remind you of, what you have, what you bring to the world. And we all need that. We need that. We need
Yes,
that.
yes.
We need that pickup, because it's hard to, keep going. Yeah. It's hard to keep going when you're in a vacuum.
Thick of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Bridget. Everybody's got their
Hi.
puppies. I need to go get my puppy.
I know, I was gonna apologize. Usually I try to keep my little square really quiet and but I just brought her home 4 hours ago. And so she's really wanting to investigate my face and the smell of my ears and all
I
the
was gonna say
You see
she's
the puppy?
so cute.
Oh my goodness. What is she?
Congratulations. What an exciting time. Oh, hi, baby.
She's miniature Aussie Jack Russell wire-haired Heinz 57.
Oh, the best. The
Cuteness.
best. The best.
Oh, she's beautiful. Look at her markings.
Yeah, she's really cute. And we're on a foster right now because she was so snappy and growling and all of the things at the adoption event at my other dog, who's sitting right here now, that they were afraid. I could tell by his response, because he was like, you're hysterical. And he'd just like wag his tail and walk away. I could tell by his response it was going to be okay, but the rescue, I mean, God bless them, they did the right thing. And they were like, let's just do a 2-week foster. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. So as you can see, it's going quite well. She's already slept, she's already pottied outside twice, and she wants to be in my shirt, but
She
so-
loves you. Look at the way she's looking at you. She's like,
it's really cute. Yeah. So she's she just got spayed, and I think she might be a little older than I think she is, but
I
she's
think
been
she's
really
in
great.
love.
I know.
I know. Hi,
Yeah.
sweet.
She's found
Well,
home.
yeah, she's just really, I mean, she's freaking adorable. Oh. Anyways, what I was, when I raised my hand, it was because you were talking about, Christine, about like the dog trainer, like talking to you and you weren't realizing. And it brought me back to a memory where I worked at a mortgage company for a long time, but maybe like a year or two in, my boss got really, really sick and she had been gone for a while. And I worked with 20 other other women in this office. And when she came back, we were all kind of standing in this big room, and she was going around the room thanking everybody for a gift we had bought her and hugging everybody. And she got to me and she said, "Is it okay if I hug you? I know you don't like to be hugged." And I had no idea what she was talking about. And it was the first time that I realized that other people saw me very differently than how I actually felt on the inside.
Mhm.
And I was like, it was almost it was embarrassing, right? Because she was hugging all these other people. Hi, hi, welcome back. And she gets to me and she's like,
Gets to the
"Is it okay if I-"
porcupine.
I'm sorry?
She gets to the porcupine, apparently.
Yeah, and I was like, and then of course it was probably the most awkward hug in history. Like,
Oh, that
okay.
always.
It was so weird. And it was such a bizarre. And then I was outside of my body for the hug, right? Because I remember being like, oh, I don't like to be hugged. And like that was there in my head while this thing was going on. And it was so bizarre. Like I was like, oh, that's like, it was so wild that I had no idea that that's how people saw me. And a couple weeks later, everyone was going out for a drink after work, and I never got invited. I had never been invited at that time. And I actually still drank at that time. I don't drink now, but I drank then. And one of the women said, I finally said something like, "Oh, thanks for inviting me, you guys." Kind of, doing that like preemptive little shitty passive aggressive thing. I was in my mid-20s, all right? But
You have a pass.
I'm not saying I've outgrown it. I'm just stating what my age is. Let's be real. And they said, "Oh," actually, I was mid-30s actually. They said, "Oh, we didn't think you'd ever want to go with us." And I was like, "Why would I not want to go with you?" And they're like, "You have this like really full life. You have like 3 kids and you're a softball mom." And she's like naming all these things. And she's like, "We didn't think you'd want to hang out with us." And I had no, like, once again, it was that thing, like, what do people see me as? Like, it was so wild I had no, like, and of course, like, you're right, I don't need any friends, would never be who I am. I'm like, feel like I'm such a nerd, but it was just so, and that's what the dog trainer, when you were saying that you were like stiff and they kept saying like, "Well, hello." Um,
No.
that's what that brought me to, was that realization. I know. Um, that realization that we will deal with the jumping up on my chest. at
Oh,
some
she
point
wants to
in
know
time.
if you're okay. It's so
Yeah,
cute.
yeah. And she's like,
I have a
why are you looking at that screen? I'm right here. I'm right here.
I
She's
have
like, you don't need any friends. You have me.
yeah.
Your life is
And why
complete.
do people think that you don't like hugs? Look, I will prove them wrong right now.
Exactly, right. I know. She's
And
so
kisses.
sweet. I have earlier I couldn't
herself
figure out.
between you and the screen. She's
Yeah.
literally projecting herself. She's like, me first, me first.
Yeah.
Exactly. Me.
Yeah, she's already using the one paw on me.
Yeah.
Like, hey, baby, where's the Pez dispenser that you were just a minute ago when I came to you? But so anyways, like that. And so some of that continues, and I realized, like, I've had a huge, Christine knows, little, like, huge breaking open this last 4 years. Huge things have happened for me. But I'm realizing how long it can take other people to catch up to who the new you are.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Like, I can allow myself, like, it was seismic for me, right? Like, it was like whirring, like this, seismic. And then when other people respond to who I used to be, oh, we might need to be going out to the backyard. And then I'll get a little frustrated because I'm this new me. I'm like saying things like the feeling behind it's different, the energy behind it's different, but their response is still to who that other person is. And my husband and I had a talk the other day about what it takes to see somebody new in a new light, what work it might take for another person to be able to see you as something new.
Yeah.
And I would say also, I think it's logical that if someone you knew well changed, it would take you a while to get to figure out who
Totally.
is, yeah, what ways are they different? And it also can make people uncomfortable because we hate to make mistakes as humans, we don't want to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. So then instead of taking the chance that that might happen, because I don't know the old you, the new you, I might pull away to protect myself. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that brings, it's funny because you said that, I was just really thinking about, I don't know if you guys have heard of Terry Real. I've talked about Terry Real before, but like he's this amazing couples counselor and he is a boss. I mean, this guy takes on relationships between narcissists and borderlines and like some of the quote unquote labels that, forget the label, just say these people, they're coping, and the way that they have learned to cope in life is really hard to address because of the defenses that they have. So they're the hardest, they can be the hardest group to work with because just getting help feels like I am admitting that I'm the problem. And therefore getting help, I can't get help because then everyone will know I'm the problem. What I really want to tell them is that everyone already knows you're the problem. You getting help is by no means letting the cat out of the bag, right? But anyway, so he's amazing, but he does a lot of couples counseling. And the one of the things that he teaches and says, like, if you're coming to couples counseling because you want me to fix your relationship, I am not going to even try to do that. Not going to try to do that. What we'll do is that we're going to work on each person individually. And then as each person improves individually, then you will improve as a couple.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm part of this group called Conversations That Matter that meets on Sundays, and one of the things is don't interrupt. And so what am I doing? I'm interrupting. I mean, it's just like I'm very aware of that. But yeah, I think it's like if you each figure out your own stuff, I think organically the relationship it'll just organically get better or change. I can't say
Yeah,
it's gonna
it'll
get
either
better,
get
but
better or it'll end, right? But it's going to,
right. It'll change if you each do your pieces parts organically together, it'll change.
yeah. And he says also that you can't, he said, they tell you when you go to school to be a therapist that you can't take sides. And he says, that's a load of bullshit. He's like, I will take sides. He said, but you are not allowed to bring your past grievances. Like, I'm not here to referee the fight you had last week or the recurring fight that you have every month or what we're doing. We're starting right now. But in other words, if somebody is abusing and bullying mentally and verbally and emotionally another person in front of him, he's going to then intervene. But what he does the most of the time is he supports the person who's maybe on the receiving end of that to speak what they're feeling in that moment or what's happening. Because even the person that, especially anger, there's nothing that will make you unconscious faster than anger. Anger is like the super highway to being unconscious. So if you're trying to show up and be present and be kind and be a good listener, as soon as you're angry, you might as well just go for a run because the conversation is over. Chantel.
I was just thinking about your original question, like when we notice things about ourselves and about the last sharing and thinking like, I think we it's possible to do the same thing to ourselves. Like you label yourself as like, I'm bad at math, or I'm an extrovert, or I like think about, I don't know if it's true of everyone, but I used to hate tomatoes. Now I love tomatoes. But like at some point I had to say, maybe I like tomatoes. And like you were saying, be a student of yourself. And something that I'm obsessed with right now is this idea of ourselves as a trajectory, not a point. And that really, I think until we leave here, we're a work in progress. And so it's like, I guess I think part of this, like noticing something about yourself is like questioning what you think is true. Like, is it, I taught this class, the neuroscience of you, and I had my students do an assignment, who are you? And they could tell me however they want. And then a few weeks later, I said, who are you right now? And I think it's interesting because I just wonder how much we do the same, we make the same mistakes with ourselves. Like we just assume this thing is true of us without checking it out.
Absolutely. I would say too, and anybody who has ever worked with me knows I'm kind of a stickler for what words we choose to use. So, declarations that we make about ourselves, because okay, so this brings us to the ego, right? Because the ego is always trying to identify itself. And it will identify itself with negative things just as fast as it'll identify itself with positive things. And the negative things, they could be things we don't even want. So like, in other words, maybe you wanted to like tomatoes, right? Maybe you really wanted to, but you kept using the power of language to reaffirm and declare that you
Don't.
and tomatoes are a no-go.
Or no.
It's a no, right? So all I would say is in everything, I'm always looking at language and how language can create space for possibility. Doesn't have to, we're not going to declare I love tomatoes when we don't love.
But would you say like, I do not like this tomato right now? I do not like this tomato. I have not met all their friends, but
Just
Maybe that's
why. I don't like the way he's looking at me.
but in the future there may be a tomato that I can groove with.
Don't you think that, like when we stick with I am, it's such a flag in the sand, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, here's my flag, and it just, you can just feel it, right? Where if it's just open-ended, even all the not worthy stuff, if you can just like, if you just for a minute step away from that, and if you're just I am,
Mhm.
and you're just
Yeah.
awesome.
Or even
Mhm.
like, there's some phrases I'll use like, in the past,
Mhm.
I didn't like tomatoes, maybe that'll change, or, up till now, haven't really liked tomatoes.
I'm so glad I could be part of the coaching everybody through the tomato experience.
Tomato, right? Well, keep it simple, stupid, right? Like,
Yeah. Love it.
so,
My
this-
my daughter used to embarrass me because we'd go to people's houses and she was very picky, and she'd be like, oh, gross, when someone put a plate of food in front of her. And so I would work really hard on her, like, that's not what we say, and all this stuff. And so we go to someone's house and someone puts something in front of her. She goes, yeah, I don't think I care for that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, progress. But I was like,
progress, it can be slow. Okay.
so now we still say that like she's 35 years old and we still say that all the time. Yeah, I don't care for that. It's so
That
funny.
individual tomato
Uh-huh.
today.
Mhm. But it's it is the ego always looking to define itself. And
Mhm.
and it gets so tricky. It's so crafty. But when we do that, we make ourselves smaller and more limited in what's possible. And I mean, I would love to just for a minute go down the road of hearing like some of the most catty things that someone has said to you under the guise of a compliment.
Ooh.
Or because that's where ego can really, how many times have you heard somebody say or had someone say something to you or heard someone say something to someone else something that was really pretty harsh and say, you know, I'm just being honest, right? I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you the truth. Or, where someone will say, oh, wow, you look amazing. That's an amazing outfit. Yeah, like I've never been one for that girly girl stuff myself. I'm just a jeans and sweater kind of girl, but you look great. You follow me? There's a lot of those things. And when you give someone a compliment and then you have to quantify where you stand in relation to the compliment, that's where we're sliding into ego, right? Needing to identify ourselves so that we can be fully formed in our minds.
I mean, it's not really a compliment if you do that.
No, but it happens all the time. It happens all the time. Especially in the horse area, there's a lot of that happening. A lot of that happening in regards to how you dress, how you look. There's almost this badge of honor around suffering, right? This kind of, or it could be about anything in regards to training or in regards to how other people are doing things versus you in any area. And so, yeah, I was just wondering if anybody had any funny stories about getting those back.
I'll share one. I got a good one.
Okay.
Parents were just here, as you probably saw on Facebook, and I lost a bunch of weight last year, like a lot, like 25 pounds. And I think I look great. I'm really happy about it. Like my jeans fit again. I don't think I'm too skinny. My mom, of course, she's my mom, and she's like, you're too skinny. And we walk around naked in front. We always have so pretty clearly, like my ribs don't show. And so eventually I was like, Mom, you taught us when we were kids, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Do you have to keep saying what you feel? Is there any filter there? And she was like, well, first of all, she thought I was rude because I was being rude. But then she was like, okay, maybe. She's like, no, you look good. She's like, I realized you look good. And maybe it's just because I wish I was losing weight myself. And it was actually a really nice moment because she is a little more overweight than she was. And that's not the part of the story that was sort of amusing. I was like, okay, it's good. It's really good. And then we go to this high tea with a really good friend of mine who's put on a little bit of weight recently. And she goes, hey, you look great. It's really good to see you. She turns to my mother and says, don't you think she's too skinny? And I was just like, oh, thanks. I just worked at that.
Wow.
I'll show you, right? I am slim right now.
Yeah. I saw your bathing suit picture. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But you don't look too skinny. You don't look like you're sickly or something. I mean,
it was definitely one of those, she looks great.
yeah, too skinny. You should get that t-shirt. You can never be too skinny or too rich.
Yeah.
My latest one came from a woman in a Starbucks who I didn't even know. But I was, and I remember posting this on Facebook. I was down, it's a very high-end area here in Los Angeles. There's lots of injectability clinics on the corner, how beautiful do you want to be? And all this stuff. And I was going to a dermatologist. So I had no makeup on. I had big baggy clothes on. I knew some things were going to be cut out, and she had to go through my hair, and I just wanted a coffee. And I go into Starbucks, and I was standing next to this woman. I thought we were having a nice conversation, and I'm sure my hair was just looked like I'd come out of the brambles of something. And I just, and we're talking and stuff, and I'm singing to the music that's on, and she just looks at me and she goes, well, just look at you being so brave to leave the house just as you are. Laughing. And I was like, thank you. almost felt like it was a movie. Like it was just so hysterically funny because she was like so coiffed to perfection. The makeup was perfect. She was probably, I'm 57 and she was probably in her 60s, and there was like no wrinkles and I mean, everything was like perfect. Her hand hung just right off her arm and her everything. And it was hysterical. Oh my God, I was dying laughing. I got in the car and I just had tears rolling down my face. And I was like,
Gave you a great conversation piece there.
Like that meme.
Oh, it's so
Right? Like
funny.
the horse people, we show up like we look like we're hobos in the grocery store, but we've got the most expensive outfit on because our clothes cost so much.
I feel like if I don't have dirt under my fingernails, which is like 15% of the time, I'm dressed up. I'm dressed up. There's no dirt under my fingernails. Amy Schumer said something about like something about your experience in a comedy show. So it's really real. Like she said she got photographed paddleboarding and that the like press said, "Oh, how brave." And because she's in a bikini. She's like, "That is the least good compliment I've ever gotten."
Yes, how brave I was to leave the house just as you are. It's like to wear a bikini.
Yeah, those are not the things you want to hear.
How
Oh.
brave.
It was really great. It was it was just, you had to see her. Like, I wish I could, like, I don't know. She was like very Glenn Close-ish, like in that, like that very, and I was just like, it's so like, I just wanted to like hug her and go, God, you're so perfect for that role. Like, that was so great.
But maybe she was thinking like, I could have had coffee 2 hours ago if I left the house, like without putting myself, like maybe she was legitimately like, this could be a thing for me. Like I
jealous.
could have been caffeinated like hours ago
She might
if
have
I
been
hadn't
having
like,
a moment.
groomed my eyebrows or whatever.
Yeah, she might have been having a moment going, wait, this is an option?
This is
I had no idea.
acceptable. You can just be natural.
Uh-huh.
She really could have been admiring you.
I know. Yeah, it was just like you had to like hear the tone and everything. And I was
I know.
like, oh, thank you. It was just so funny. It was perfect. It was very perfect for LA too. It was,
Yeah.
it was
Also,
very-
did you just say you were like, how old did you do? You look 30 years old.
I'm
So
fi-
I'll
I
give you
just turned- yeah, 57.
I think it's great to look every age and to show our lived experiences, but I would not have guessed that for you. How brave
Yeah.
of you.
I know. I mean, and I
Brave
even
to
leave the
How
house.
brave of you to show up to this meeting looking 20 years younger than you have any right to be looking.
Oh my God.
Oh, I mean, it's a wonder I get out of the house, isn't it? It's just like, oh,
She was
thank
probably
you.
thinking, I spent all this money to look like this, and I'm not as happy as that girl over there.
Right, that's what I was
That's
thinking.
probably what it was. I mean, it was the Eurythmics, so I don't know how you don't sing and
You
dance.
have to say.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking she has to be having some kind of flashback, right? But no.
Well, you know what, that kind of, does anybody have any other funny stories about some backhanded compliments?
Yeah, this is a quick, interesting one about riding a horse. I do Jane Pike's movement stuff, and so I was on a horse at my best friend's property, not her property, but the barn where she is. And I was riding a mutual friend of ours' horse, and I was doing some centerline turning with this horse. The mare is pretty old and very stiff, and I was just working with what the mare was able to give, and I was quite happy with this. And my friend Kristen was watching. Afterward, I had gotten off and took care of the mare, and we were talking. And I said, well, what did you think? Because she's ridden the mare before and I had never ridden her. And she said, well, her leaser actually is an amazing, like the way her leaser rides her is really on the bit and over her back. And she usually uses draw reins. And I'm looking at her like, okay, so are you saying that I suck? Like the mare looks completely like going around on 3 legs and that she needs to be in draw reins to look good. But I mean, it really was sort of like, oh yeah, you did a good job, but you really should see how she can go when she's in all this equipment. So it was like, yeah, Jane, like, I don't know where she was coming from with that, but it really seemed like a backhanded compliment of, "Yeah, you did a great job with her, but like, you
got
have
a
no
pat on
idea
the
how
back.
she really can go."
Yeah.
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 So yeah, it was, yeah, thank you very much. I won't ask you for your opinion again. Moving on.
We're good. Anybody else?
I just want to take 2 seconds to share my view because it's stunning. And we were talking, the sun is setting and it's like, can you guys see it?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about gratitude for the spaces that we live in. And I was feeling gratitude for being in this room and that the universe is showing me something outside. The end.
Yeah.
Not a backhanded compliment.
Beautiful. It's funny, I will say, Nina, that you're probably around a bunch of avid book readers here because it's a very well-read group. And so Nina has this amazing house in San Francisco where she has steps, this whole thing of steps that lead up to her front door, and she painted every step as the binding of a book, a different book, all the way up. It's so
Love that.
I think
That is
that's on my Pinterest board. I'm just saying.
yeah.
At least once. It's got to be on one of my Pinterest boards.
Like one of the things I didn't anticipate, which I super love, is people always standing there like taking selfies in front of it. That's really nice. And we were talking when you actually, I was thinking about my steps when you started off saying, you know, you lose gratitude for things, because I had those done. Like I did the artwork and same painter painted them for me, and it's got to be 10 years ago now. And people compliment them all the time, and they make me happy every single day. And when I had them done, I was like, how much is that going to cost? And then if you ask me now, I can't tell you because it was so much that I just wouldn't even think about it. I refuse to remember how much that number was. Whatever it was worth it, because literally every day I'm like, I love my steps.
They bring you and others joy.
Yeah.
That's great. I was Chantel, when you said that about the sunset, I was thinking about, can you imagine if we like backhanded compliment Mother Nature? Like we wouldn't go, oh yeah, you couldn't try a little harder, sun, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
sunset.
pretty good, right?
Like,
Before
pretty
it's cold
good.
as
You
shit.
should have
But
been
it's all
here
right.
last night. Okay,
Yeah.
like we
Gonna
so,
get
like,
dark, but
Someone
whatever.
did that, and we got a huge windstorm. Somebody that I know
There
on
you go. You
Facebook,
gotta be-
he's like, Mother Nature, you ain't gonna do nothing. And I'm like, Dane,
Challenge accepted.
-15 wind chill.
Oh, God.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was this idea around, and this is just understand, like, I am not talking about this stuff as a way to make anybody feel bad about themselves. Like, we all have egos. We all, we all do things to protect our ego or to build our ego or to solidify the ego we have. So this is just part of being human. The challenge is just to have fun with noticing it and then making choices about whether you do want to go ahead with this thing or say this thing or do this thing, or you don't. And one of the things that has come up for me, which is, it's kind of silly, but on Facebook, sometimes there'll be these beautiful pictures and they'll have these words, these very like, hear me roar, this is me kind of wording. And some of them are beautiful and some of them are like, a part of me is like, oh, that's me, the feral woman, or, I'm this or I'm that. Like there's all these, and I love them. But I don't share them because there's an aspect of them that is saying, this is how I'm different and how I'm better. And it's not calling out who you're better than, but it's kind of this, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
It's like a Trojan horse of judgment, those things, right? Like like there's so many Trojan horses of judgment, and we justify our behavior when we attach it to something that's like that.
yeah.
Like, yeah, so that's like there's a lot of Trojan horses there that you
Yeah,
have
it
to
can
be
really justify
careful.
behavior.
Judgment is a sneaky bitch.
It is. It is. And that
Yeah.
piece that, don't know, I don't feel good about sharing anything that is tribal and dividing, the tribalism and the division that seems to be so prevalent, the grandiosity, yes, that seems to be so prevalent, especially on social media. We do not behave 1/10 as badly in person as people, and I don't know, I say it's the collective we, not meaning this group in particular, but I mean like as a species, as we do on social media when we get to say and do things almost anonymously. And I think that being able to be in a room or be in a group of people and have different beliefs and different experiences and coming from different places and different families and different origins and different religions and different political views and different ethnicities or sexual orientation and all of that, and being okay that everyone in the group is not exactly like you. And maybe not only being okay with it, but finding that that's a great way to learn more and to have really good conversations. And even if you didn't want to be there, at least not being someone that feel that this thing that's happening where we cut people out, we cut people off that don't align with us. And what's really kind of funny about that is that when you do that, you're more likely creating more of what you don't want, because now that person gets to live in a vacuum, you live in a vacuum, and there's no cross-pollination of ideas or other ways of thinking. So I think that our work in really noticing where our ego comes in and whether or not that's a way that works for us or not, or if that's in line with who we want to be and how we want to show up, is a really good question. Because you can have things about yourself, you can be like proud of your red hair, like fire hair, like exactly, redheads are awesome. You can be proud of your ethnicity, you can be proud of these things. It's how you use them or how you wield them that decides whether or not it's a way of breaking connection with others or a way of building connection with others. And one of the
I
biggest,
feel like you need to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the biggest things after COVID, I think, is that we've really, though we may be more divided as a whole in the world, I think we saw how important real relationships are in our lives and having real people in our lives.
Question, Christine?
Yeah.
I'm wondering about, I was thinking about like being proud of a redhead. I wonder why. I don't know. I don't know why that stuck with me. No, I'm about like these celebratory quotes that kind of somehow other or like better than other people versus this way of, I guess the question is, let me like actually form a question. Do you think there's a way that you embrace yourself and make space for others to embrace themselves that's like not redheads are great, and if you're not a redhead or like what's your favorite hair color, like I think there's also this something else that's like oh my gosh, I'm like drawing the blank. Her name is like Marianne something, and it was in Aquila and the Bee where they're like, who are you, Williamson, yeah, like who are you not to be great? And like, so I think there's something else where like you can invite other people to appreciate themselves. And I don't actually know if it's language, if it's like way of being or what, that's like, here we are, where we're ourselves. Like, I'm awesome, you're awesome, we're awesome. Like if there's an ego, if that's just like not about ego, it's about modeling self-love. Anyway, I think that I was just like listening to you and thinking that's a slippery slope. And like, where does that become about othering? And where does that become about like, look, you can just like something about yourself. It's freaking rad. I don't know.
It is right. Well,
What do
it's
you think?
like all these topics, I feel like there's a kind of like a razor's edge, like a tightrope
Mm.
where you're doing the balancing, right? Because
Mhm,
we
mhm.
want to celebrate each other. We want to celebrate what makes everyone special and the things about ourselves that we love. It's the idea of in what energy are we doing that celebration,
Yeah.
right? Is it the
Mhm,
celebration of me better than you? Or is
mhm.
it celebration of me, right? And you. Yes, and the yes,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I'm great. Yes, and so the
We're all great.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No,
I think that quote is like, who are we not to like be bright and be our best selves and like, you know,
Yes.
it's kind of interesting. Anyway, you've made me think, so thank you.
Welcome.
so
Joanne?
Christine, I was just thinking more about what you were saying with having acceptance of that diverse group that you listed off of all the different cultures and ways of being. And I guess my thinking goes to, you know, Chantal, with your background in neuroscience, that we have this sort of, we're all wired with this neural bias to feel more comfortable with our likes, what's the same as us. So we have a neural wiring in our system to be defensive against other. So my thinking, what's the answer? And I don't know if there is an answer, but how do we build that awareness of acceptance into our biology, where we are open to all the differences of the peoples in the world, I guess, is what jumped out to me when you were saying that.
Mhm. My favorite,
Lot of it.
sorry. I was just gonna say, I never thought of it that way by Monica Guzman is such a good book. And one like just tiny point that she says when you come into being with someone who's different is like, what am I missing? Like that person's way of being is works for them. Like it might seem asinine to you. What am I missing? That's like my little mantra, the end.
Mm.
Yeah, I was sort of going to say the same thing by, being curious. Like if you're curious, you're not going to go wrong about the other person, how they work, what matters to them, how they see themselves. Like staying curious in groups of people, with individuals, with cultures, whatever, small or large. That to me
And
is like a bridge or a key to, I don't know, balancing the ego, because your ego will always be in check if you remain curious outside yourself.
And I think what Christine said about being like passionately like studying ourselves and stuff like that is like, if you have a bad reaction to someone else's beliefs, like ask yourself why. Why does that bother you so much? I think that's so powerful.
Exactly. Because it's, the only thing that we have any control over, the only person that we have any control over is ourselves, and when you really stop and think about any given situation, I mean, maybe you're in a situation where you do need to move away from another person because it's not healthy, but it's how we respond to things that really is indicative of how we see ourselves, right? So if we respond to things in ways that we don't like, we can also project that feeling onto the person that we're responding to, right? Because we don't like the way we show up in reference to that person. But we can't change that person, but we can change how we show up. So anything that has to do with self-empowerment, I am down for. And I wanted to just really quickly check in with Tom and Sonia because they are on the so I'm just like, because they are on, are you guys still, where are you guys, by the way? They've been on this like trek. I don't know if they're home yet or still on a trek.
We're never going home.
Where they were going.
We are
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, we are home.
We are where the horses are.
We'll head back to Alaska in June. But yeah, we're still in New Mexico. We haven't been able to leave Robin. We love hanging out here, but it has gotten very, very cold. It was -7 the other night. So we may have to reconsider our choices.
Head south. Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, but what did you want to know specifically besides that?
Well, I was just curious if you had anything that you wanted to share at all. It doesn't have to be about this. I just wanted to include you in the group.
Thank you.
If
Oh,
you're
yeah.
told your brains aren't working.
What you were just talking about, I think that the first step towards being comfortable with that is just being completely comfortable with yourself and liking yourself the way you are. And
And then I've listening, I think it's almost like this kind of needs to be built into the curriculum in schools because it needs to start with our kids. It does, it needs to come into the school system. And obviously the parents need to hold that sort of mindset as well, but to help set it up for the next generations, we need to have this kind of knowledge and education in the schools, don't we?
Yeah.
yeah, that you need to be so self-assured that when somebody throws an insult your way, whether it's accidental or intentional or veiled, that you can just go, oh, that person's got some problems, but I'm okay. And there's also times when you can take that and turn around and look at yourself and go, how am I presenting myself to the world?
Yeah. Do they have a point?
But you should be, I mean, you can only be insulted really if you let yourself be.
I am very concerned. I'm now living very concerned since Bridget kind of shared her experience because we were going to go to California soon, and I just rarely shower anymore, don't own any makeup. I'm pretty sure they're going to kick me out.
Stay in Northern California. Northern California. The Southern California people are very beautiful and put together, in my stereotypical opinion.
My very
I live in two spaces. I live in Redondo Beach, there's a lot of that, and I live up in Acton where there's none of that. So it just, it's kind of and I do both. Like I like to put on makeup and look pretty and go out and go to a concert and hang out and do all the things and stuff, and then I come back to Acton and I'm like, oh shit, I think there's a bra somewhere.
Yeah.
Like I have like it's I don't literally like, yeah, those socks are probably only 3 days. I don't know. So don't worry about it.
You really do need to come visit us in Homer, because in Homer, if you see somebody that's dressed up with makeup and like a dress and heels or something, that's unusual. That'd be, it's how brave of you to come out like that.
Well, especially when there's snow up to here, that would make it very brave.
One of the events that we got invited to a few times is called Putting on the Ritz. And it's a fundraiser for the museum in town. And it was so interesting to see these gals that normally you see them in coveralls or, just everyday stuff. And they're all dressed up, to the T. And then they're wearing a pair of muck boots underneath this gorgeous gown that would be in place in New York at the Met. It's a different way of living.
It's funny because we all talk about building creative lives, right? And my daughter Lauren and I were talking about this, and we were talking about the idea of adorning ourselves with clothing and how what a huge palette you can have. I enjoy, look, if you come here and you see me coming out my back door towards the horses, I have been known to wear a neon pink sweater with green sweatpants and slippers that my son left so that they're size 10, and my feet are flip-flopping around and my hair is but if you're like, do you want to go out to this like amazing new fine dining restaurant and see a show and get dressed up, I'm excited for that too, because it's also creative. Like, what am I going to wear? What could happen? Like, it almost feels very much like you're playing, with how you show up, like what you look like. I mean, what could be more creative and fun than that? And if it's not for everybody, like, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be. I think a lot
But
of
don't you think that's part of our being? You think about other tribal rituals where people will be all dressed up in beads and feathers and amazing outfits. And maybe that's just part of what makes us tick.
Yes.
Sometimes we want to just be earthy, and the other times put those feathers on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
depending on how we
That-
feel in the situation.
It freaks me out that you say that, Christine, because just this week I realized that I haven't worked in 5 years. And one of the things that I loved about work was I always loved makeup and clothes. I'm a clothes horse. I loved makeup and clothes. I love different boots, and it was like a thing for me. It was a form of creativity that has left my life
Right, because there was no reason to
last
do it.
years. And so now I have all this other stuff that I'm like, oh, now I'm, want to draw and paint and do different things, which I'm horribly shit at, but it doesn't matter. I could care less. Like I'm doing right now, I'm doing nothing but drawing with my left hand because I'm such a bad drawer, but I can judge myself if I use my right hand, which is my dominant hand. So I'm drawing like the worst stuff ever with my left hand in this sketchbook, and it's so freaking awesome to suck.
Looks like a 5-year-old.
But like, I didn't realize how much I missed that little bit of creativity because I didn't think I thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as a creative aspect of who I was.
But and I'm the
Yeah.
same in the sense of like, my office is at my house, and most of my clients I work with are online. So right now I am Zoom from the waist up and the gym from the waist down, right? Because I mean, that's just, I am lazy too. I don't want to change 50 times a day. So
The work mullet.
right, I'm in the work mullet. But sometimes I'll want to feel like I'm in a rut, and then I'll just literally go, I'm going to go out to like a cool little coffee shop. I'm going to work on my computer, work from there, and I'm going to dress like I feel good. Like I'm going out to get shit done today. I'm going to do stuff. I'm going to shake the world up. And that feels good.
I hope you have a
So
whole
what's our
wardrobe of
experience?
cotton and flowy pants for Bali.
Yeah,
I do.
it was a little scary when I knew when you were describing how you were dressed from the waist up, and then when you started to the waist down, it was like, uh-oh.
It's
I'm going to start doing some telehealth next week. And my plan is that I brought a few really pretty scarves along and some nice earrings. So I'll just, whatever I'm wearing, I'm just going to wrap scarves around, and then they can just see this part of me.
Yes.
So that should
Like
work.
I'm saying,
I'm
How
not
you do
late.
it?
And right now, our dressing up is like, do we have anything that's actually clean?
I get that. I get that.
Yeah. I went out for lunch this week and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to put on real pants. Like I'm going to put on jeans. Like that's huge.
I was
If it's not
there.
yoga
I was
pants,
there.
I'm
I was
hiding
there for the
pants.
jeans moment.
Yeah,
I know. We met for lunch and I was like, I just want you to know, I put on real pants for you.
Hi, Jane. I guess I mean, I could talk to you guys for another 5 hours probably. Maybe not that long, but I think that one of the key things is what Chantel brought up, which is the idea that all of this stuff is in a balance. You know, it's balancing it. It's just kind of noticing, being willing to notice, being willing to ask questions maybe of others, or ask questions of yourself. And then remember that all of this stuff it's a practice. You're never going to get it perfect. You're never going to get it right. You're never going to be the perfect human. It's a boring place to be if you were perfect. Nobody would like you. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. But honestly, like it's perfection is boring. We're messy and dynamic and layered beings, and that's what makes us so interesting. And you know, just don't use any of this as a way to find fault with yourself. This is all just exploring and having fun and noticing things and making choices in areas that maybe you didn't see before, or you didn't even know you had choices. You didn't even know that this is how the brain works.
Chantel does.
Chantel knows all about the brain. I'm afraid she knows all about my brain.
I
So-
do. I'm actually like seeing into all of your minds right now through your brains. But
I don't know.
I
I've
just
been
wanted to
asking her to scan my brain for years, but there's clearly not enough here to study.
Not true. Not true. Well, what you just said made me think about like the very beginning, and when you were talking about showing up for the dog trainer, you know, you're talking about us as work in progress, and I just wanted to like identify with what happened to you and say, yeah, and I've seen so many horse clinics and work clinics and everything else, and it's really kind of funny, stupid that we show up to a trainer, but what we really want is to be like, oh, you're doing awesome. You're the winner. Like, you don't need me. And that like never happens, right? Like, I think people show up and they're like, you know, they're like horses, lead rope is casually draped over their shoulder and they're like walking around the world. Like, I'm just like commune with this horse in the works. Like, you're this close to dying because like you're gonna like choke. You know, it's funny, but that's what we want, right? Like just how silly is life that we show up to a trainer
right,
whose job it is to help us grow,
right.
and we want to be the one that's like doing it right already. That's
And we
like just a waste of money. If that were true, you would be wasting your money and your time.
Right.
Silly.
Right. Well, you know, our we are creators. I know this is a little bit of a side, right? But we're creators. We're creators. We're super powerful creators, but everything comes from what we think up here. This is what creates our outer life. Our inner life creates our outer life. And I think if somebody said that to somebody who was nervous going into a clinic, it would be that like the brain would rewire and go, oh yeah, why am I nervous about doing things wrong? I'm here because I am probably not doing it in the best way. That's what this person's going to show me. So, oh, I lost my train of thought. Hold on. What did I start with saying?
We are creators.
Yes, thank you. So always, you know, staying aware of what we are always creating, because if the catastrophizing is always there, then knowing that can be a piece of that we're bringing into our life. You know, it's not about stuffing it down. You could address that catastrophizing by saying, yes, that is possible. And I know you're trying to keep me safe. I know that part of me is trying to keep me safe, but everything's all right. Like in this moment, it's like Eckhart Tolle says, you know, when you get lost in what could be, then just ground down into this moment. Is anything wrong right now? And if it's a no, just stay right now. Anybody have anything Any last words of wisdom or jokes?
When we were talking earlier about the ego, I just remember like I have a thing now where I feel like ego and love rarely share the same space. And if I'm in ego, I'm not coming at anything or holding on to any kind of love for myself. Like ego is my survival system, and you can't be in love in survival. And so if I can just take a moment to go, where's that sitting? And I live quite adjacent to myself a lot these days, and it's okay, to kind of go, oh, look at you, Miss Smarty Pants. Thought you needed to say that, or, look at you getting angry. Wonder what that was about. And it's really easy in the car because then I'm literally like looking at the seat next to me, like, oh. But like, yeah, if I just keep reminding myself that ego and love don't share the same space, then I can kind of change how I'm feeling about another person, or even how I'm feeling about myself. And it's just, kind of slowing down enough to remember that sometimes is the difficult part. Yeah. And I have a new puppy. What could be wrong?
And it doesn't mean like anything is wrong. It's just information. I had someone that reach out to me this morning. We had this great conversation, and they said, they sent me an email, and I was reading it, and it was like bells were going off, because I guess I had mentioned to them something about wanting to post about the fact that our Bali retreat got sold out. I was super like, oh my God, I got sold out. I got to let everybody know, like, it got sold out. And she just asked me where that was coming from. And it was like, oh, because she must have picked up on something in the energy around how I was saying it. And I realized there was a piece of me that was like wanting people to know it sold out, in a way like, see, I have value. See, look what happened. Like, can you see me now? That little kid, that little piece that wanted to like run around and go, look at me, look, it happened. It must be true. I must have value. It must be true. And it just, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's so interesting because like listening to you say that, my first thought was, I'd love to celebrate that with you.
Right. Well, it's not the problem isn't in the declaration. This is the fine line. The problem is that she heard something in me that seemed out of alignment or integrity or whatever you're gonna say. It was just a little off. Maybe there was a grasping in it, or I need it. I don't know what it was. I didn't ask her yet, right? But as soon as she questioned it, I got like, I was the dog trainer, and I got a chance to do a correction on me to figure out what is that? Because as soon as I read it, it hit me, and I was like, and it, as if there's something here. So now if I do post about it, I may or may not. I may not need to. I may not. There's other ways to celebrate the whole thing. I mean, I'm celebrating the whole time. So, but it's what was behind it, what energetically was behind it. And I feel more grounded and more solid not doing that post. Maybe I'll post something different, but not that post, because it was really needing validation, and you'll never get it. Like it could go to 5,000 people liked it, and it will never integrate, because it's counting on something outside of me to validate me. And the only the only thing that can make me feel good about me is me.
What about sloth claps?
Sloth can make me feel,
Super excited for you.
I'm super excited too. You're all coming next time.
Okay. So-
You'll be warmer.
Yeah. When you talk about the ego, for me, it comes back to a book that you recommended that I read long ago. You recommended read Big Magic. And I did read the book. And ever since then, I've been wanting to tell you thank you for recommending that. And I keep forgetting. So finally I remember.
You did it.
But there's a part in the book where she talks about how, I think it was the Greeks would, when they created a piece of art or did something great, their retreat sold out, that they wouldn't take the credit themselves. They gave the credit to the universe, gave them that gift of ability to create a great sculpture out of marble or a retreat that everybody wanted to go to. So they're not puffing themselves up. Do you remember that about the book?
You know what's so funny
I
is
don't
I
remember.
feel like I know that book inside and out, and I'm not remembering this part. But that's, I mean, it's funny because we always lock in on the things that speak to us the most, and maybe that part, I don't know, it fell out of my brain, Tom.
Yeah. That's the one takeaway I had from the book. The rest of it, I read so many books and read so much that everything just morphs into
This, yeah,
whatever I am.
yeah. But she does touch on ego in a sense of the idea that there's this whole ego thing of being the starving artist. So if you're going to be an artist, then you have to be the starving artist, and it's you against the world. And if you don't make it by selling your art by the time you're this much or this age, then you're going to quit and go do something else. And her whole outlook was, I never forced my art to pay my way.
Yeah.
Never, ever. I was an artist. I was a writer. I was a writer, whether I got paid to do it or not. And I looked at it as something precious and special that was given to me, and I needed to nurture it. And so I worked jobs in order to support my art.
Yeah.
That is gotta be the opposite of ego. That is humility and gratitude. I love you guys. Oh my God, this has been so much fun. I haven't laughed this hard in a while. I love when we laugh.
Have a great trip.
Thank you. Thank you. And then I guess I'll see you guys. Hopefully I'll see you in February. I'm going to try to do things where I kind of move the time around instead of keeping it the same, because a lot of people can't join. Some other people couldn't join because it was in the afternoon this time, and they're in the UK, and now it's midnight for them. So I think that I'm going to move the times around, and I wish there was a time that we could all be together, but hopefully there'll be times that everybody can show up anyway.
We'll do a weekend pajama party.
I want to do it.
First Fridays, right?
Yeah, just leave our computers on and like play board
Yeah.
games. Yeah. Oh, we
Yeah.
play idea of doing one where we're playing. I like that. I like that.
I know a whole bunch of games you can play on Zoom because we survived the 2020 to 2022 in the lab like that. So let me know if you want.
I should have known that you would.
suggestions.
I will want some. I do.
There's great. Like we could do goldfish
yeah.
bowl, fish bowl.
Yeah.
There's I got.
Okay. Perfect.
We're gonna be like Pictionary.
I
and
love it.
charades
I
and
love
all
it.
kinds of things.
I did a Zoom scavenger hunt that got pretty
We-
intense, including my boss, like running to go get something and like knocking her chair over.
Oh my gosh.
It was
Oh my
hilarious.
That sounds like
gosh.
fun.
All right. Love you guys. Be safe.
Love you
and
too.
I'll see you on the
Safe
other side of
trip.
Italy.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming, all you guys. Bye.
Have a great time, Christine. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
See ya. Glad I could make it.
Yes, so glad you can make it.